You've built quite a wonderful home, haven't you? Mrs. Brown, what brings you here all of a sudden? Well, I heard you were building a house, so I just came to visit. My mother-in-law suddenly visited the new house. Honestly, I didn't like her very much. Talking with her was as exhausting as a few days of work. Just a moment, please. I haven't tidied up there yet. Oh, this room is lovely. Ignoring my warning, she freely explored the room. When I looked at my husband, he was smiling as if enjoying something. He probably found my interaction with his mother amusing. Then, out of the blue, she declared, "I will use this room. No more living alone for me. From now on, you will have to take care of me." What? That's impossible. But I have permission to live here. Michael had apparently informed her so. I'm sorry, but that's not possible. Why? Everything is ready. I had to tell her a desperate fact. Because we are not planning to live in this house. What? I will never forget the look of surprise on her face at that moment. This was a revenge for the times she had belittled us. My name is Sandra. I am 32 years old, living with my husband Michael, who is the same age. We have been married for 3 years, and each day has been very fulfilling. Life has been enjoyable. However, there were some challenges even before we got married. We're heading to my parents' house now, but be prepared as things could get troublesome. Huh? What do you mean? I can't say much now, but I will explain later. All right, I'll prepare myself mentally. This warning from Michael came as we were about to leave to greet his parents before getting married. Initially, I thought it was just a matter of etiquette, but it turned out to be more than that. I touched on this earlier, but my mother can be quite troublesome, and she tends to look down on people outside the family. I'm worried about that. Moreover, she has been particularly harsh on people recently for no particular reason. Michael was smiling, but there was a serious concern behind his expression. Being so explicitly warned made me incredibly anxious about what kind of person I was about to meet. Finally, when we arrived at his parents' house, an unexpected event awaited us. So, could you tell me about your siblings, Sandra? I have one younger brother. And what do your parents do? My father is a university professor, and my mother is a housewife. Foon, that's quite impressive. After that, each question was directed at me, and one after another felt like a barrage. In the middle, I felt enveloped in a very unpleasant sensation, as if undergoing a harsh interrogation. Glancing at Michael's face, it was filled with a sullenness that seemed to say, "See, I told you." Well, I acknowledge the marriage, but now that you will be welcomed as a member of our family, you must follow my instructions. Can you accept that? Yes, I will follow them. Thus, the marriage greeting somehow concluded, but to put it bluntly, it was a hellish experience. The tension was unending, and I was constantly tormented by the fear of what words might come next. How was it? "Are you okay?" Michael asked. My stomach hurt so much I couldn't stand it. I felt the same way. I couldn't relax at all. On the way home, we exchanged wry smiles, realizing that this event was just a prelude. We decided to distance ourselves as much as possible. Avoiding contact seemed the best way to prevent further issues. However, this resolution would be tested sooner than expected. "Sandra, how about coming to our house for a little while next weekend?" "I'm sorry, but I have plans that weekend." "You should be able to come for a little while." "Didn't you promise to obey?" At that moment, I regretted making such a troublesome promise. Indeed, I had said so, but it was not meant in that sense. Also, when you come next time, please come alone. Thank you." Being asked to visit alone, I felt a heavy weight sink into my chest. I immediately discussed this with Michael. What on earth is she thinking? Even I can't understand her, and I'm her son. But surely she won't do anything strange. Well, that's hard to tell. What? Hearing Michael's uncertain reply, my willingness to go faded even more. At that moment, I even considered using a fake illness. "If anything happens, contact me immediately. I'll come to pick you up right away. Thank you." Just those words make me stronger. And then, the fateful day arrived. When I arrived at the family home, there sat my sister-in-law next to my mother-in-law. I hadn't seen her since the wedding, and I didn't think highly of her. The reason was that she resembled my mother-in-law. "Thank you for coming all the way here today." "Yes, so what's the purpose of today?" "I thought I'd show you what it means to become our daughter-in-law." "That's why I called my daughter here too. I wanted to run away from there. However, the two of them wouldn't allow it, and I would come to strongly regret not having pretended to be sick. First, Sandra, could you please do some cleaning? Do it properly." "Until we say you can stop." "What do you mean?" That's when the whole house cleaning began. From sweeping with a broom to mopping and even tidying up each room, a thorough clean was demanded. During this time, my sister-in-law did not help at all. If she found even a small bit of trash left, she made me do it all over again. Before I knew it, 4 hours had passed since I started cleaning. "Could I please take a short break?" "What? Someone who can't even clean properly doesn't need a break. Start again quickly. Just 5 minutes. Stop nagging." With that, my sister-in-law forcefully kicked a bucket filled with dirty water. The water started spreading quickly. Who did she think would clean this up? Then, my mother-in-law appeared. "How long are you going to keep doing this? She won't follow any instructions at all. Mom, say something." All I could do was look up at the sky. Dealing with my sister-in-law was tough enough, but now the even stricter mother-in-law had joined. Foon, why did Michael marry someone so incompetent? That's obvious, isn't it? Because Michael is the same. Indeed, you're right. At that moment, I suddenly remembered. From what Michael had told me, his late father and my mother-in-law did not get along. According to him, even his father had been at his wits' end with the troublesome mother-in-law. The resentment towards Michael was because he reminded her of her husband. It seemed like such a trivial reason. She's not good at cleaning, but maybe she can cook. Then, let's have you make something. And so, the agony of cooking began. I made several dishes, but I stopped counting halfway through. How can someone make such horrible food? Really? Even my child wouldn't make such food. Did you hear that? If you understand, then hurry up and redo it. I tried to make it again, but I had already reached my limit. If I continued to obey them, I would break down both mentally and physically. The moment I tried to reach for my smartphone, "What are you hiding and doing?" After that, my smartphone was snatched and thrown outside. My last hope was lost. I no longer knew what to think. When people become desperate, this is what happens. Truly a useless daughter-in-law. Can't you even see the meaning of life? Mom, isn't that a bit too much? Even if it's true, don't you think that's a bit cruel to say? The two of them were laughing heartily. Just then, the front door opened and someone came in. I looked up, exhausted. There stood Michael. Sandra, let's go home. What are you talking about? Her education isn't finished yet. What are you saying? This is clearly abuse. What? You have no right to say that. Quietly, Michael took my hand, and we left the house. His demeanor was like that of a prince. Behind us, my mother-in-law shouted, "Do you understand what the consequences of doing this will be?" Whatever, I'm taking her home. This is how I was freed from that torment. Sorry for being late. It's okay. I believed you would come. I couldn't get through on the phone, so I hurried over. I got stuck in traffic on the way. I see. Ah, the smartphone they threw away is still there. They did that too. Michael couldn't help but sigh. Honestly, I never want to go back to my in-laws' house again. Although I was somewhat prepared, it meant nothing in front of those two. To me, those two were no longer mere humans, but something else. But I'm really worried if this is really okay. I can't get what your mother said out of my head. Let's just ignore all contacts from them for now. It's best until things calm down. That's true. Despite intermittent contacts from my mother-in-law, we consistently ignored them. Our peaceful life continued. Then, one day, about 3 months later, the doorbell rang. Hey, was someone supposed to visit us today? No, we didn't have any plans. When I went to check the front door, there stood my mother-in-law, who I had been desperately hoping to avoid. It was the worst possible timing. It's been a while. I've been trying to contact you, but you've kept ignoring me. My mother-in-law entered the house boldly. It was clear that this would lead to troublesome situations. "Mrs. Brown, why are you here?" "What? Am I not allowed to visit?" "I just came to check on my son." But to visit without any prior contact. Michael seemed helpless in front of his mother. I started to look for a way to send her back. I didn't want our stable days to be disturbed any further. By the way, this house has no charm at all. Do you actually enjoy living here? Of course. We just don't waste money on unnecessary things, unlike some people. Are you referring to me? Not specifically. A confrontation with my mother-in-law seemed imminent. I just wanted her to leave as soon as possible. However, there was no sign of her leaving. At that moment, Michael stepped in. "Sorry, but we're actually heading out now, so it would help if you could leave for today." "Well then, I'll wait here. Have a good time." You're not trying to get rid of me by lying, are you?" I could feel the malice in her character. It was clear that continuing the argument would get us nowhere. In the end, we changed our plans and went out. 2 hours later, I received a message from her. "I'll be leaving now. Take care." "What?" "Mrs. Brown, wait a second." The call ended abruptly. I was relieved for the moment, but when we returned home, it looked as if it had been ransacked. My mother-in-law most likely had intentionally made a mess to blame us. What is this? It might have been revenge. Anyway, we need to clean up. We continued cleaning up late into the night, not finishing until after midnight. We reached the point where I felt we no longer needed to hold back against my in-laws. We resolved to find a way to retaliate against my mother-in-law. Although my sister-in-law was also problematic, we expected her to self-destruct, so we decided to just watch and not intervene. I've reached my limit. I want to do something about this stress before it destroys me. It's unbearable, even though she's my own mother. What can I do to teach her a lesson? If only there was a way to change her fundamentally. But is that really okay? I have approval from Dad. He said I could do whatever I wanted before he passed away. I'm relieved to hear that. Then there's no need to hold back. While we were talking and watching TV, news came that a major storm had directly hit my hometown. At that moment, an indescribable sense of anxiety overwhelmed me. This is about your hometown, right? Yes, I hope everything is okay. Then a call came from my parents. Dad, what's wrong? Sandra. The house has been destroyed. Is it because of the recent storm? Yes, I don't know what to do. I'll think of something here. So don't do anything strange. I immediately told Michael about the situation. We had been busy with my mother-in-law's problems, but I was ready to do anything for my parents. I wanted to take measures quickly. How about we build them a new house? Really? If that's possible, they would definitely be happy. And how about building it nearby this time, to bring them closer? That sounds good. I'll cover the costs. No, since it was my idea. Let's share the costs. But this is my family's issue. Thus, we decided to build a new home for my parents. We chose to provide the best house possible. The total cost amounted to $800,000 money we had saved from our past efforts. I did not hesitate because it was for my parents. They will surely be happy. Without a doubt, they will be. Thus, the project to build my parents' house began. I looked forward to the completion, imagining how happy my parents would be. The construction progressed smoothly and was nearing completion when it seems Mom has done something again. What has she done? I don't really understand why she's decided this, but it seems she wants to leave the old house and live somewhere new. She always comes up with bizarre ideas. Hearing this, an idea popped into my head. Just thinking about it almost made me burst into laughter. Is something wrong? I've come up with a funny plan. If it works, we might be able to surprise your mother. What kind of plan? It sounds really fun. Tell me more. I shared the plan with Michael and asked him to implement it once the house was finished. It had been a while since I'd seen Michael so lively. I felt the same way. Now that the house is finished, we can really get started. Leave it to me. She'll definitely fall for it. The success of this operation depends on you. I'm counting on you. Together with Michael, we did a final check and informed my mother-in-law about the plan. This was the beginning of our little revenge against her. As expected, my mother-in-law visited the next day. You've built quite a wonderful home, haven't you? Mrs. Brown, what brings you here all of a sudden? Well, I heard you were building a house, so I just came to visit. My mother-in-law suddenly visited the new house. She entered the house as if it were her own. I still couldn't open my heart to her. Honestly, I didn't like her very much. Talking with her was as exhausting as a few days of work. I had lost any affection for her, but I couldn't avoid the situation. Just a moment, please. I haven't tidied up there yet. Oh, this room is lovely. Ignoring my warning, she freely explored the room. When I looked at Michael, he was smiling as if enjoying something. He probably found my interaction with his mother amusing. Then, out of the blue, she declared, "I will use this room. No more living alone for me. From now on, you will have to take care of me." This was exactly as we had anticipated. How naive she could be. And thus, a new chapter in the story began. What? That's impossible. But I have permission to live here. Who told you that? I confronted Michael. However, Michael wasn't flustered. Michael and I had discussed this beforehand, and even me confronting him was part of the plan. My mother-in-law, thinking a fight was starting, stepped in. "Please don't fight. We're family now and should live together." That's when I threw the line I had decided on. "Oh, I'm sorry, but that's not possible." "Why not?" "Everything is ready." "Because we are not planning to live in this house." "What?" "Wait a moment. I've already sold my house and decided to live here." I still haven't forgotten the look of surprise on her face. This was retribution for how she had belittled us. "You must be misunderstanding something. Poor thing." Then, my mother-in-law turned to Michael. "Michael, what's going on?" "Explain." "There's nothing to explain. Sandra told you exactly how it is, and although I originally thought it would be nice to live together with my parents." "What did you say?" "However, I really prefer not to live together." "That's absurd." It was unbearable to see my mother-in-law shouting. If she were to destroy this house, I wouldn't be able to explain it to my parents. So I decided to completely distance myself from her. "Please leave. There is no place for you in this house, Mrs. Brown." "Wait a moment. Then who will live in this house?" "My parents will live here." "Do you understand? Where am I supposed to live then?" My mother-in-law seemed to realize the gravity of the situation. Her energy noticeably deflated. Everything was going according to plan. Michael and I couldn't hide our joy at seeing her like that. "Don't worry, your daughter is around, right? You'll be fine." "But she's going through a tough time right now with her divorce. She can't afford to help." I knew this fact from Michael and had suggested it based on that information. But it might be a bit mean. That's unfortunate. But it has nothing to do with us. Don't you have any sympathy? I'll return those words to you. I haven't forgotten what happened in the past. That's the situation, so please give up. Thus, we drove my mother-in-law out of the house. The back of my mother-in-law being driven out looked very small. There really was nowhere for her to return to. By the way, I heard from someone I know that my sister is getting divorced. Her ex-husband's decision was wise. Yes, even if she tries to hide her personality, it will eventually be revealed. It's poetic justice that she has ruined herself without our intervention. Afterward, it seems the mother-in-law had to rely on my sister-in-law because she could no longer live at the already sold family home. However, my sister-in-law has been a housewife all her life, so it was extremely difficult to find a job for her. Currently, they are making ends meet in a run-down apartment. Sandra, I apologize for everything in the past. Please help me. What benefit would there be for me to do such a thing? I am your mother-in-law. Even so, I'd rather not. What did you say? My mother-in-law was quite upset in the end, but I was indifferent. I had no intention of sympathizing from the start, and whatever the outcome, it did not concern me. It's been a long time since I've felt this clear-hearted. With no obstacles in the way, fun days were ahead. In the midst of this, my parents made a proposal. Why don't we live together? Ah, but that house was built for you and Dad to live in. That's true, but it's too big for just the two of us, and it would be reassuring if we were all together. Michael and I looked at each other and nodded. Let's do that, we decided. I didn't like imposing self-serving opinions, but I wholeheartedly agreed with such a proposal. Not only was there joy, but there was more surprising news. I'm pregnant. Really? Maybe someone somewhere was watching over us. From now on, we will move forward into a hopeful future with our new family.
We're going to live in this house. You need to leave." It was at that moment that the cunning strategy of the calculating mother-in-law was realized. I had my doubts about my mother-in-law's unusual attitude from the beginning. However, my lack of attention led to a mistake that, in the end, caused the outcome my mother-in-law intended. I was filled with regret, wishing I could have made a different choice at that moment. But it was too late to take action. The divorce papers I impulsively filed were also part of her plan. However, I never imagined that my lack of planning would cause a significant disruption in her scheme. As is often the case in stories, schemes of people who are jealous of the successful and behave in a shady manner often end up not going as they had planned. In the end, only those who are sincere and kind receive the benefits of fortune. My name is Isabella. I quickly became close to my husband, Gabriel, whom I met through a friend, and we soon started dating. Gabriel was 9 years younger than me, but I was swayed by his earnest pursuit, and we got married. However, Gabriel's attitude changed significantly after our marriage. The affectionate gaze he once had disappeared, and his interest in me gradually faded. This change continued even after our child was born, and Gabriel showed no interest in parenting. His job involved frequent transfers, many of which were solitary assignments away from the family. It has been 10 years since we got married, but his return home has become extremely rare. Our son, Sean, is very shy and does not get along with his father, Gabriel. He always hides behind me when they are together. Feeling that I can't rely on Gabriel, I decided to focus on freelance work, which I could do without leaving the house. Since this job provided a stable income, there was no inconvenience in living with just Sean and me. In fact, despite Gabriel's repeated transfers and lack of promotion, I earned more than he did. I live like a single mother, but there is only one problem. That is the issue of living with my husband's parents. In contrast to our cold relationship, my in-laws get along very well, and I have felt envious of their relationship at times. However, after living together for a while, I realized something. On the surface, my in-laws behaved like a loving couple who understood each other, but in reality, their behavior was superficial. My mother-in-law, Helen, treated her husband, Michael, as if he were her own property. Knowing that he would never rebel, she used this to her advantage and bossed him around as she pleased. Justifying her behavior as a means of stress relief, Helen had a coercive attitude toward everyone, whether they were family members or strangers. Her self-centered and domineering behavior was obviously directed at me, who was living with them, and put me under mental pressure. Her pressure was not limited to domineering behavior. Even after 10 years of marriage, she constantly criticized and insulted me for being 9 years older than my husband, Gabriel. Helen often publicly said, "Poor Gabriel marrying an older woman. He deserves a younger and more attractive woman," hurting me. Ironically though, the one that proposed was Gabriel. She ignored that fact and continued to criticize me, hurting my feelings in the process. Even so, while living together, I did not want to unnecessarily worsen our relationship, so I had no choice but to endure in silence. Then, one day, I received an unexpected call from my father. When the phone rang and I picked up the receiver, I was informed by him that my mother, Mary, had been in a traffic accident. Shocked by this sudden news, I immediately rushed to the hospital where my mom had been taken. Arriving at the hospital next to my anxious father, my mother greeted me with a smile and said, "Really, your father tends to overreact. Don't worry, I'm fine." Seeing her healthy appearance and cheerful response, I was relieved that she had not suffered any major injuries. However, the doctor later explained that my mother had a fractured leg. Even after surgery, a full recovery was not expected, and she was likely to have difficulty walking. My mother eventually underwent surgery and was transferred to a rehabilitation facility to aim for recovery and return home. After 6 months of rehabilitation, she became somewhat able to walk, but she could not regain her previous freedom and needed a walker even after returning home. After she was discharged, I decided to spend a few days with her and realized that it would be difficult for my elderly father, who suffers from back pain, to support her daily life alone. As a result, I began visiting my parents' house frequently, juggling work, taking care of my child, and dealing with my in-laws in addition to supporting my parents. My mother-in-law, however, seemed dissatisfied with my choice to take care of my own parents and never offered me a word of comfort despite my busy life. Do you not feel ashamed that a daughter-in-law is neglecting her household duties? My husband and I are exhausted from work, yet what are you doing? She continued to criticize. Despite feeling irritated by her words after my tiring days, I managed to suppress my anger and barely managed to respond with a forced smile. Feeling that I could no longer continue in this situation, I confided in Gabriel about considering living with my own parents. Well, that sounds tough, but I'm busy with work. Gabriel responded with the expected lack of interest. Disappointed by Gabriel's half-hearted reception of my desire to leave the in-laws' house, I was disheartened. Well, my parents will manage somehow. What you want to do is up to you. Gabriel's indifferent comment pushed my patience to its limit, and I decided to live with my parents and proceeded with plans to build a duplex house. I informed my in-laws about my parents' situation and the de facto consent I had received from Gabriel. It initially seemed like my mother-in-law would try to stop me from leaving the house, but to my surprise, she smiled kindly and showed consideration for my mother. Oh, was it that difficult? Indeed, it's better to have them close. She responded warmly, which made me suspicious and sent a chill down my spine. I couldn't wholeheartedly accept the superficial kindness of my in-laws and remain cautious. When meeting with the contractor to discuss living arrangements while caring for my parents, for some reason, the in-laws accompanied me every time. Despite feeling uneasy, I couldn't refuse my mother-in-law's strong request and ended up allowing their presence. "We'll be fine, don't worry," they said, observing my consultation with a smile without joining the conversation, but I couldn't understand the meaning behind their actions. Nevertheless, the plans progressed steadily, and the duplex house for me and my parents was completed. Feeling that they were scheming something, I decided to hand over the keys while my mother and father-in-law were at work. After confirming that no one was home, I sighed in relief. That evening, while preparing dinner, my mother-in-law made a sudden, strange suggestion. "I heard the new house is finished. Can I see inside before you move your belongings in? I want to get some ideas for when we might need care in the future," she said in an unnaturally kind tone. Her attitude was clearly suspicious. Overwhelmed by her persistent requests, I eventually agreed to show her the new house the next day. I put the newly received keys in my bag and headed to the car. Strangely, I hadn't seen the father-in-law since the morning, and the mother-in-law said she had urgent business, which felt suspicious to me. During the drive to the new house, my mother-in-law was oddly engrossed in her smartphone in the passenger seat. Though I was driving and couldn't see the details, her behavior seemed unnatural. Arriving at the new house, she looked around restlessly, inspecting the surroundings, while I watched her every move with suspicion and caution. I did not let my guard down. Upon unlocking the front door, she suddenly pushed past me and boldly entered the house. Determined not to let a single scratch mar our new home, I threw my bag into the shoe cabinet beside the entrance and hurried after her. "This house is marvelous," she praised as she walked through the house with a bright demeanor. I closely observed her for any suspicious actions, but nothing seemed amiss at that time. Just as I was about to suggest we leave after my mother-in-law had thoroughly savored every corner of the house, I heard a noise from the supposedly empty entrance. Rushing there, I found my father-in-law smiling warmly. "Finally arrived. You can go ahead and bring the luggage," he called out, and as if on cue, luggage began to be carried in one after another. Confused by what was happening, I tried to stop the influx of belongings but was hindered by my in-laws, and before I knew it, everything was over. "What on earth is going on?" I demanded, and my mother-in-law looked down at me with a smug expression. "We're going to live in this house. You need to leave." At that time, the words uttered by her were beyond my understanding. Hurrying to the entrance, I checked my bag that was supposed to be there, only to find that the master key, which should have been inside, was nowhere to be found. While I was desperately searching the entrance area, my father-in-law appeared with a full smile and declared loudly, "Looking for this? From now on, we will live in this house. I would like you to leave promptly." Holding the master key taken from my handbag, the sight of my father-in-law looking down on me sent chills down my spine. Next to him, I saw my mother-in-law carelessly throwing my personal belongings outside the entrance. Their secretly planned scheme became clear, and I gave them a stern look on the spot. "I understand." I was at the limit of my patience. I quietly stated, feeling the difficulty of accepting the situation. I gathered my scattered bags and shoes and, while holding back tears, got into the driver's seat of the car and eventually left the premises of my new house, heading straight from the new house to the city hall. I received the necessary documents for divorce proceedings, and upon returning home, I found that numerous essentials, including shoes and clothes that should have been there until the morning, were gone. It was only at that moment that I realized why my mother-in-law was glued to her smartphone during the ride. It was so she could coordinate a plan to take over the new house with her husband. Deeply disappointed, I headed back to the new house. When I pressed the intercom button, my mother-in-law's bright and satisfied voice reached my ears. As if to thwart my attempt to reclaim the house, she locked the door and peeked out through a small gap. When I handed her the divorce papers through the narrow gap, the documents unexpectedly swiftly returned with Gabriel's signature, just as I expected. "I'm glad I prepared beforehand. And thank you for leaving the house-related documents for us," my mother-in-law said smoothly. The mortgage and other related documents for the new house were kept in the new home so that they wouldn't get lost. I calmly tried to resist for the final time, but my mother-in-law coldly sneered at me. "I've already contacted the bank. We won't concern ourselves with what happens next," she declared. "I'm surprised at your naivety. We're already preparing for refinancing and other necessary procedures," she continued. Shocked, I returned home, quickly packed my and my child's belongings, and prepared to move, relocating to my parents' house within the day. About a month later, an unexpected call came from my mother-in-law. Wondering what it might be about, I answered, only to hear her screaming in an intense tone on the other end. "Wait, this is not what we agreed on. You deceived us," she accused me, despite the fact that they were the ones who had devised the scheme. "What exactly do you mean?" I inquired. My in-laws had deceived me and forcefully took the newly built house from me, thinking I had also already completed the refinancing of the mortgage. However, the miscalculation was, unexpectedly, on their part. Facing a demand for a lump sum repayment from the bank, my mother-in-law had been trying to secure a new mortgage from another bank. However, by proceeding with the contract without paying attention to the mortgage details, she committed two major mistakes. The first error was that the mortgage was solely in my name. My mother-in-law misunderstood that Gabriel and I had taken out a joint mortgage and was appalled at the lump sum amount she was requested to repay. Moreover, she naively thought that being co-borrowers meant only half the mortgage payment would suffice. But reality was not that simple. Repeatedly making unilateral demands at the bank, my mother-in-law eventually got denied and seemed to have ended up securing another mortgage using different financing. Yet, there was another crucial point that she had overlooked. Another miscalculation was related to their age. While I had some leeway in borrowing capacity and term, it was impossible for my in-laws, who were both over 60, to secure funds under the same conditions. My father-in-law had been working as a contract employee for years without a substantial income. My mother-in-law also worked part-time, however only in the mornings, which also didn't amount to much. With that in mind, it was impossible for the two of them to pay off the mortgage for that house. Without properly reviewing the repayment plan, my mother-in-law just peeked at my plan and thought paying the same amount would be fine. As a result, they received a bill exceeding their expectations by more than 3 times the amount. This call was from my mother-in-law, who, noticing an anomaly in their account balance as the payments began, contacted me in a fury. "There's nothing I can do even if you tell me. It's impossible for a full-time housewife like you to pay such an amount." I haven't received any explanation from Gabriel, and there must be something behind this. "Tell me the truth, now." "What do you mean?" "There's no hidden agenda. In fact, Gabriel has not contributed a single penny to our living expenses since before our child was born." "What do you mean?" "Then who has been paying for the living expenses all this time?" "I've been working from home, so I certainly have an income. Besides, as far as I know, it's probably more than Gabriel's salary." At my response, my mother-in-law was momentarily lost for words, but I could easily imagine her being flabbergasted on the other end of the phone. Even when our family went out to eat, my mother-in-law and the others usually left the payments to me. "It's obvious that the daughter-in-law should pay," they would say, but have they ever considered where that money came from? I don't know what the in-laws spend their earnings on, but it's likely that the two of them, having no savings, were relying on our income for their old age. Fed up with her selfish demands, I ignored her accusations coming from the other end of the phone and ended the call. After that series of events, the calls didn't cease to end, making my phone ring multiple times a day. However, I deliberately chose to avoid answering and consistently ignored her calls. This continued for days, which had a significant impact on my state of mind, but I was resolute. I eventually ended up living with my parents in my family home. Living with 4 people under one roof was more cramped than I had imagined. But by letting go of the new house, I had some breathing room in my financial situation. In anticipation of this new beginning and with my mother in mind, I decided to purchase a reasonably priced used home and renovate it for nursing care. My parents were fully supportive of this plan, and so the decision was made by the entire family. If we were to move, we decided to sell the current house. Surprisingly, selling off our family home went smoother than expected, and a buyer was found quite quickly. Moreover, since land prices were rising at that time, we were fortunate to sell it for far more than expected. This made the move to the new house much easier. The bank procedures also went very smoothly, thanks to the understanding staff. As a result, without any additional expenses, our family was able to acquire a new home. One day, a call from my mother-in-law once again reached me. For some reason, I was groggy that day, and without thinking, I picked up the phone and started the conversation. Her voice came through the phone. "Hey, Isabella, just a little bit would do. Could you lend us some money? After paying off the mortgage, we have nothing left, and we might even get our water service cut off if we can't make the payment." My family home unexpectedly sold for quite a high price. That's how we were able to buy the new house in cash. Why don't you try the same method? Despite the harsh treatment I had received, I was simply dumbfounded that she still sought my help. That's why I shared my experience of when we sold our home. Upon hearing that, her crying suddenly stopped, and the call ended abruptly. I was relieved, thinking that I would get no more troublesome calls from her. However, there were still issues remaining. A week later, another call came. "How many times do you plan to deceive us?" Her voice, suddenly berating me, was clearly filled with anger even over the phone. According to her explanation, their house was originally a built-to-sale house, which meant that the house itself had little to no value. Furthermore, because the location of the house was in a bad area, the land value had significantly decreased, leaving it almost worthless. In the end, no buyers appeared, and the in-laws were not only left without any income but also received bills for various handling fees. Since then, I stopped responding to my in-laws' frequent calls, blocked their numbers, and ignored any calls from public phones. Eventually, they seemed to have given up, and no more calls came through. Just when I thought I had regained peace, I got an unexpected call from Gabriel. "Hey, there's a for sale sign in front of my house, and I can't get in." Astonished by Gabriel's carelessness, I explained his mother's actions with a sigh. Gabriel was surprised when he heard my story, unaware of the events. But what really astonished me was his complete lack of reaction to the fact that we were already divorced. Gabriel was angry that the family home had been sold, but it was his mother's doing, and it had nothing to do with me since we were already divorced. A few hours after his call, he called again, apparently having arrived at his new home. However, all I could hear over the phone was the sound of disputes between my mother-in-law and her family. I later found out that Gabriel had a lover at the place he was transferred to. Having lost his home, he was considering living with his lover, but it turned out that his lover was already married. In the end, not only did Gabriel lose his lover, but he also faced alimony charges from the lover's spouse. He lost his job due to his parents' actions and is now working at a company that provides employee dormitories, with his income reduced to less than half of what it used to be. Additionally, I learned that the in-laws had imposed themselves on his new residence and were living there as freeloaders. After remodeling the old house and moving in, our family had started a new chapter in our lives. I have remarried Mr. Brown, an older man who kindly advised me on the house renovations. Having shared experiences of divorce and children, we immediately clicked and are now enjoying fulfilling days based on shared values. Mr. Brown is warm-hearted and actively helps take care of my parents, using his professional knowledge to quickly solve any problems they face, which is incredibly reassuring. While caregiving is challenging, I am deeply satisfied with my current life, living peaceful days with a true swashy husband and lovely children.